Welcome to the Rising Entrepreneurs Podcast, where we feature top founders and entrepreneurs and their journey. Now, let's get started with the show.
All right, welcome everyone. John Corcoran here. I am the co-host of this show. And for those of you who are new to this program, go check out our archives because we've got some great episodes, some great interviews with smart CEOs, founders, and entrepreneurs of all kinds of companies. And I'm also the co-founder of Rise 25, where we help connect B2B business owners to their ideal prospects. And this episode here today brought to you by EO San Francisco. EO San Francisco is a chapter of the Global Entrepreneurs Organization known as EO, which has 16,000 members globally, helps other entrepreneurs to connect and build relationships and build their business collectively. And so go check them out at eonetwork.org. And my guest here today is John Grover. He's the co-founder of Endsight, which he co-founded in 2004. It's a 150-person outsourced IT department for small and medium-sized organizations. They have offices in Northern California and also San Diego. And I'm excited to talk to him about his background with entrepreneurship. And John, excited to have you here. First of all, you grew up in Auburn, Alabama. Your parents were college professors and didn't go too far away for college. You ended up staying right there in Auburn. That's right. I'm sure they made you a deal you couldn't refuse. Right. But tell me about, were you the kind of kid who was like running around starting businesses, doing lemonade stands out on your parents' lawn, or are you not that kind of kid?
Well, it's a funny story. I actually was not. And my parents are college professors, think like Peace Corps types.
Yeah.
And it's not that they say the ugly things about business people, but it wasn't the virtuous thing to be in my household was to like be out there crushing it and starting your own business and putting on a bunch of risk and stuff like that. It was more like, let's make a difference for the world and help the developing countries and all that sort of stuff. So no, it was a different thing, and it didn't really occur to me till I got to California. So.
And you came to California, Northern California, in the late 90s. So we're talking .com boom. This is when San Francisco was going crazy, the first .com wave, right? When you show up in San Francisco?
That's right. I show up and that cool breeze hit me coming off the bay. And I said, this is football weather all year round. I just got done finishing school in the muggy South. Well, I said, I think this will work for me. And the sun was shining and it was cool. And then I was looking around, and what I noticed, John, was that the young people were running the show. Okay. And everybody I was talking to was like, hey, what's your plan? What do you this is what I'm doing to kind of like, affect the future of the world. And what are you doing? How are you thinking about stuff? And what are you here for? And so, and I said, dang, I got to get a plan. I thought I was just really trying to stay off the street and keep my nose clean. You know what I'm saying? And I was going to work here a little bit and go to medical school or apply to physical therapy school. I didn't have a big plan, but the luck factor cannot be overstated, right? So you come out of school in a time when the economy was heated.
Definitely. I graduated actually in 98, so 1 year after you. And many of my friends, I went to college in California. Many of my friends gravitated to the Bay Area. I ended up going kind of going over working in politics for a few years in Washington, D.C., but wanting to get back to Northern California because I was so jealous of all this stuff. That's where all the action was at that point in time.
There was nobody saying, young man, slow your roll. You got to get experience. And this, you need to tighten it up. And just like, it was none of that. It was like, no, get up in here. You could do this. Right. And I saw a bunch of knuckleheads doing pretty well. And I said, well, why not me? Somebody got to get out here and do something, get after it and make the world better. Why not me? Right.
So what was the first stop? I mean, so you got your bachelor's degree, exercise science is what you studied from Auburn.
That's right.
So were you a technical kid? Like, had you been dabbling in computers on the side or?
Not at all. So I didn't even know computers were a career or anything. I love physical fitness and human potential and maybe physical therapy or medical school. And so, but when I got out here, I was fortunate enough to get a job at an IT certification company. And we were taking people and teaching them Microsoft stuff, certification training, Microsoft certified systems engineer. And I was seeing people change their lives, go from working at PG&E, climbing telephone poles to making double what they were making. just by getting educated on some of these IT principles. And I started really seeing how the tools of these businesses were affecting the productivity of everybody and everything, right? So a law firm in the 90s had each attorney had, I don't know, several paralegals and helpers and paper, and it's like,
oh, definitely a lot more overhead back then. Yeah.
Right. Now you give them a laptop and an internet connection and a subscription to LexisNexis, and they can search up stuff. And anyway, so it's just I just got it. I just looked out. I saw, oh, there's a river of kind of productivity and money flowing through this place. And I was a student of life and learning, and I didn't have much to. I just burned all the ships from before, right? None of my fraternity brother connections and all the stuff from being in a college. My dad was kind of a big wig in the college, and I kind of had all this stuff growing up, but came out here and started
kind of starting
scratch.
over from scratch, really. Yeah.
And it was good because you can really observe, almost like a scientist, right? And like, this is how my dad thinks, right? When he's walking through the woods, he's noticing everything and observing, right? And so that's sort of what I did, and just for that curiosity and that optimism that seems to be in the water in the Bay Area. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's the weather. Maybe it's the sunny
Something
weather.
Like that. Yeah. So you're fresh off the boat, so to speak, from Alabama. Don't know a lot about computers, but there's this crazy gold rush going on. The .com wave is happening, and you end up at an IT services company. Are you educating yourself? Are you trying to learn these different courses? What path did you see, and how did you figure out what path you'd follow?
Well, so I was running seminars, so almost as kind of their salesperson at the IT certification company. And they didn't want me to get any of the certifications because we were doing too well.
They were worried that you would leave.
Right. And it's not really a good thing to say to me. They're like, oh, you can't do something, or like it kind of got on my fighting side. And so I started really studying it on my own and coming in on the weekends, and I had keys to the place, and I would do the labs and just started passing all the tests on my own. But in the meantime, because they knew I was kind of unhappy, they said, oh, we'll pay for your MBA, right, at night. And so I ended up getting the certification and the MBA and ended up working for leaving, right, and working for a law firm. And then the rest is almost history. Is like, it was, yeah. So.
Now, so you were like director of IT services for a law firm?
No, so I was a technical account manager. Think virtual CIO for small law firms.
So small law, okay.
Right. So I was doing their IT strategy. We would come in and we would do a complete audit, understand what they have and why they have it, think about what their best imaginable future would be, what's the plan of the firm. And then we'd build an IT plan complete with budgets and timelines to get them from where they want to be now to where they want to go. And I just got to like all you can eat strategy all the time. And you just can't be having those conversations all day and not rev up to like 11 on your like entrepreneurship, just the all day, every day, just talking about growth and how to get there. And so
now did you, I want to ask you about this. So you come to the Bay Area. The Bay Area's got this crazy, .com frenzy that's going on. But then you go and you're working with law firms. Now, I can say as a recovering lawyer, former having practiced law for myself, lawyers can make horrible clients. So kudos to you that you work with these with lawyers as clients. They can be really difficult. But also at the same time, it's not working with like, .coms. It's not working with the kind of sexy companies of the time. Did you feel that at all at the time?
Well, to be clear, I had law firm clients, but I had other industries too. But no, I don't share that opinion, actually. If you come with a really lousy, poorly thought through strategy plan, right, that you're shallow in, an attorney, a law partner is going to see straight through that and ask you 1,000 questions. And they're like, they just know, just through the look on your face and the tone of your voice. And so what that did was that taught me the difference between being a professional and an amateur. I just decided I'm gonna go pro. I don't need an easy client because they don't need. They could have anybody for that. I want to be the consummate professional, and I want to come prepared. and I'm the expert in this, and there's not going to be something that they're going to ask me that I haven't thought of. Right. And so I loved it. It was professional services. A law firm, that's what we were doing too, right? Like professional services. And so they showed me the way. I didn't want to be in an easy client situation. I wanted to get tough questions. In fact, it got to the point where I would come in so well prepared, all right, that I wouldn't get enough tough questions. And I'll be like, okay, well, you might be thinking, and I would start to ask all their questions for them, and they'd be way above the buying line of, oh yeah, let's do the project, John, we're good,
Then actually, that's actually great sales strategy, right? Because if they're not voicing these objections or asking these questions, it might be that they're thinking them, but they're not voicing them, and then it could kill your sale later. So what you're doing is you're kind of addressing them so that they have the answers, if I'm right.
I would take them through how I landed on their strategy. And I didn't care about selling them the dollars. I wanted to sell the ideas of what I thought was the best way for them. They told me what they wanted, like the best imaginable strategy for their firm. They wanted to double in 3 years, all this. Their email and their accounting system can't go down, 5 nines, right? Uptime. Okay, cool. I know how to do this. And this is what it's going to cost and why, and this is how we're going to get there. And so I wanted to sell my ideas framed in their best interest. And I didn't care, frankly. I wanted to sell hard for the work, for the people that worked at the firm, frankly. You know what I'm saying? The stressed out attorneys that need this stuff, right? Yeah. So, and that is what, ironically enough, sells the best. And I just didn't care, right? Like I did like it when people bought into what I was talking about, right? Yeah. But it was different than sales in the traditional sense, and it made me feel great because it was others oriented.
Yeah. So 2004 is when you co-found Endsight with a couple of other business partners. How did that come about? How did you end up starting this company?
Well, so the firm before that got acquired by these young whippersnappers my age, and I had never. I met this guy, Mike Chapin. Okay. And this guy moved to California. He was an engineer at Texas Instruments. And we were both like we're 25, 24. This guy thought he could be a CEO. I never gave myself that kind of permission to think that big, right? Like I was fired up on the Bay Area and but I wasn't like on his level. Like he was really, and he said, okay, we want you to come in with us. That's the good news. And the bad news is we're going to have to cut your salary by 2/3. And if we don't figure this thing out, we're going to have to, shut this whole business down. And I said, great. I didn't have kids. I didn't care. Like, what do I care? Right. Like, sure. Let's go. It's hard. Good. That was my attitude on it. I was like, yeah, let's do this. That's a great story. It's a great movie scene or whatever. And, and so that's what we did. But what we ended up doing is shutting down that firm because all it was is doing project work for, businesses. And we decided, let's be a business operations for small businesses. We understand small businesses. We know it's really hard to start a small business, not the least of which because their IT sucks. Let's just say it. Okay. Right? They don't have a big team of help desk engineers. They don't have a chief information officer. They don't have proactive monitoring and patching and all this sort of stuff. Right? So let's build the IT infrastructure that we wished we'd have had. And that's what we did. And we just hit it right. And we'd burn the ships. We'd shut the other thing down. Most people eased into managed services like that by doing it as a little pet project, shooting a few bullets. No, we went hard on it. And that's all we did.
To talk about that, that's a rough decision for many businesses. If you got something that's paying the bills to completely shut it down and go full bore into something completely new, there must have been moments where you're like, oh crap, did we make the right decision?
We hated that other business. Okay. It was like you were too busy and you didn't have enough people, or you had too many people on the bench and you were just, and it was never recurring revenue. And just, so we didn't look back, not one bit. Now there's a bias in business. Like people will build things not want to walk away from it, and then just start to try to like bolt onto it. Sometimes you need to just scrap the whole thing, pivot hard, and not just try to milk the marginal benefit of something that you have, right? Like, and so that's what we did is we built it from scratch. We didn't do any project work, IT project work for people that weren't willing to like sign up for us as to be their like IT department. And I think that served us well in the past. Like, like we used to have a data center where people would put their servers in our data center and do things like that. And then the public cloud came along with Microsoft Azure and AWS and Google. And rather than trying to just hold on to this investment that we had, no, we just
got rid of it.
We got rid of it. We converted people over, and then we got out in front of and built a capability, a competency that really helped us win new clients. So
when did you make that shift? So you said these guys acquired this business. Did you make that shift right after acquiring it, or is it a few years later?
About a year and a half.
A year and a half after acquiring it. So I don't know what they bought it for, but how long did it take to get back to the level that it was at before using the new focus, the new business model?
They acquired this other firm, and this firm had a severe lease of office space, like way too much office space. And it was this millstone around our necks.
And it was 2004. So was this, let's see, it was 3 years after 9/11. So it's probably still kind of coming out of that economic malaise.
Right. Well, so they had signed the lease in like 2001, right before the crash. And it was like a 5-year lease. Right. And we just didn't want to deal with it anymore. And so the end of 2003, we said, let's shut this down. We're gonna file for bankruptcy for this other firm. We're gonna shut the whole thing down and create a new entity altogether with and just be debt free and be in a small thing and bootstrap ourselves and make a little money, plow it back in. We didn't take any money from outside investors. We didn't borrow other than, from ourselves, right? I can remember putting credit cards and buying all the project gear and all the traditional entrepreneurship story. But by the way, funny story real quick. Then I remember I would be out with my father-in-law, right? And trying to pay for dinner. And because I just put $100,000 on my credit card for the last project, right?
Max out.
It would max it out and get declined. And that was, welcome.
And talk about that because, I know a few people that are in kind of similar space. And that management of money is such a huge challenge for if you're doing that type of project work and you have to buy a bunch of equipment that the client's then going to buy off of you.
Yep, it is. And your balance sheet, I didn't realize it's like they didn't really, especially talk about this in business schools. Like you could be profitable and go straight into bankruptcy. Right. And that's because your balance sheet is all weird. You can also be very severely unprofitable. Right.
Yeah.
But you're sitting in a big pool of cash and your balance sheet's flush. Right. Yeah. So watching cash flow was top of mind. I almost did not. So we started having retainers and our attorneys got that concept. And you know what I'm saying? Like our law firm clients, they understood that concept. And for that, we gave up a little profitability, but it kept the capitalization of the business going. And we got this balance sheet discipline. Okay. Tight AR, understanding it, like, and not getting in these weird crunches, just trying to chase profit, but then getting burned on the sort of the cash turnaround. So I wouldn't trade
really
it.
dialing in your accounts receivable process.
That, and then also doing things like I said, having people prepay for their work. And getting retainer work.
Now, some of the fear around that is that, we won't get the work if we are really strict about how the customer has to pay.
Yeah, but you're also discounting the benefits, and that's it. Like if they've already got a balance with you, that money spends easy. You see what I'm saying? Then their IT directors don't have to go get approval all the, like that retainer money it's a lot easier to get approvals and to get work approved that way. So as an account manager, I loved it. Now it was a little bit of a hurdle up front, right? And if they didn't want to do it, fine. It's not like we insisted that everybody do it. It was just a way especially when people wanted a little break off the hourly rate.
Yeah. So it sounds like you kind of started in a customer or a sales role. At what point did you switch into your focus on being chief people officer?
Yeah.
Because I know that's really where your passion lies.
So I took over this team of 13 engineers. We call it our professional services team, right? And they were all doing projects for our clients. And it was like having a bunch of NBA MVPs, right? Of like just superstars, but the team wasn't winning together, right? It was dysfunctional. And we were losing in every measurable way.
Mm.
And so I said, oh gosh, I might have to clean house here. And then I was like, oh crap, I actually don't know how to go out and find and hire skilled IT people. Right. I don't know how to do that. And I'm talking to my dad one day, and he's like, yeah, what's going on? That's good, son. Or how you doing? What's keeping you up at night? Or what, just as dads will do. And I said, Dad, I can't find good people. It's killing me.
Hmm.
And you hear that all the time. I hear it probably twice a month or more. And he said, okay, well, what's working? I said, well, we're crushing it on the customer side. We're winning lots of business and this and that. He said, well, okay, well, who owns the customer side of the business and business development? I said, well, that's owned all the way at the top at the CEO level. He said, well, who owns the talent side? Crickets, right? 20% of the HR director's time or something. I don't know what. It was just clear, right?
Yeah.
And he said, well, it looks like you got to go out in the world and you need to buy customers, or you need to win customers, but you also have to win talent, right? So you have to design your place to create value, not just for customers. And he said, son, you know what to do. You're a customer guy, right? And I flew home to Alabama and had a nice thing. And I started realizing, the experience of being like hosted and all these genteel things that they do in the South. We've got a bunch of Napa winery clients. They teach us how to be really good and create a lot of value for customers. And I say, let's just do this for the talent.
So you're doing it for your customers, but you're not doing the same thing for your team.
They were fifth class citizens. There was all manner, as a young leader, there's all manner of bad behavior that I would justify in the name of customer service. Right?
Yeah.
Right. But you got to realize you're not doing your customer any favor. They hire you to have the talent. You must protect them. You must kind of create a place where, first of all, you need to understand what your talent, that you need value. Right? We talk about product market fit when we're starting a business for the customers. What about talent, company fit? Right. So you need to understand the people you need, what do they value? And you need to build a business to create that value.
So what did you do after having this epiphany? What did you do with the team? Were there deliberate steps? Did you bring them together?
Yep.
What were some deliberate, intentional things that you did?
Well, I went off. First of all, I observed everything that was going on. That was the first thing. And I just saw how we were doing hiring. And we would hire like a typical engineering firm. We'd get 10 people in a room. It was an open house. And we start to run them through speed dating, like different offices. And when this person would interview them for a cultural fit for 15 minutes, and the other person would evaluate their IT skills. And it was horrible. All right. A, it wasn't a great way to make a decision. B, we started getting like 60% no-shows because everybody went on Glassdoor and said, this sucks. Okay. This place is terrible. Treats us like a bunch of cattle. And it didn't demonstrate at all what it was like to work at Endsight. That's the worst. Right. So I said, we're stopping that. All right. Funny story is I started doing lifelines. The EO forum lifeline?
Yeah. So for those who don't know, a lifeline, well, you can explain what a lifeline is.
Well, it's essentially a way for you to talk about your defining moments in your life, right? And your highs and your lows. And we hand them a whiteboard marker if it's in person, and otherwise it's sort of virtual. And we say, take us through your defining moments, not just the highs and your best accomplishments and, all the stuff you usually talk about in an interview. But we want to know the struggles, the crucibles, the lowlights as well, at least as much as we want to know and what made you who you are. What are your values? And what's the best team you ever been on? And you start to plot out their resume stuff on there, right? And what it does, it's fantastic because you learn their story, first of all. And they feel heard and understood. These people don't treat me just like a means to an end. See, nobody wants to just feel like a widget for profit,
Mm-hmm.
right? So get to know them, understand them, ask them, right? And
Yeah.
and share a little bit, be vulnerable yourself. Brene Brown stuff, 101. It's just basic stuff that we know this in forum.
Now,
right?
what was it like for you making this big shift of going towards from being, acquiring customers, right? Which there's like a dopamine hit to that, right? When you get a new client, to shifting to internally and trying to win over your own team and improve the culture internally. What was that like for you personally?
Well, we're still winning. We're still getting those dopamine drips. Okay. Because when you win a talent deal, that feels nice. Okay. And it's a miracle. Okay. They sign up with you and they're going to work with you. Right. It's a miracle, just like a client saying yes. And, but my engineers weren't that excited about it. And this is touchy feely stuff. And they wanted to get straight to what the people know.
Because they're more technical, scientific types.
Yeah. Because it's more like binary, yes or no, can they do it or not, right? And the worst mistakes that we were making were to hire people because of what they knew, and then everybody, without exception, was like, if they left or we fired them, it was because of the personality, cultural fit stuff. It wasn't because we were doing a pretty good technical evaluation. So I said, I don't even want to know what they can do until I learn who they are.
Yeah.
And if their values are going to line up with our own. And then what new things are they going to bring? Are they going to make our team better, right? Like diversity is good too, right? We need alignment on the core non-negotiable stuff. And then, but it was a hard sell. And what happened was our candidates, I started going through, and as we would do onboardings with their hiring manager, I said, why did you choose Endsight? And they said, you know what? This interview just treated me like a human and the lifeline was fantastic. I said, well, what was good about it? He said, just nobody had ever really asked me about myself before and how I became who and my engineers that were so like really nervous about this whole process of getting kind of personal and stuff, not in an offensive way. They just share what they want to share. They were so nervous about that, but it took these great new hires talking about what they valued in that selection process. And it wasn't me selling them. It was the engineers, the managers started wanting to do it because of the effectiveness of it. Effectiveness before efficiency. They're worried about how long it takes, right? Like, we're going to get 15 people here and try to do it real efficiently. What's the point? If we look, hopefully if we do it right, they're going to stay for 6, 7, 8, 10 years. Well, I'm going to take another half an hour. You think that's worth another half an hour to get to know them?
Yeah, for sure.
Right? Asymmetrical, Yeah. So this is a little bit of the kind of stuff that, and it wasn't me. The proof was in the pudding. And frankly, I had a hypothesis.
And what did you lean on? Were there books, were there resources that you kind of got these ideas from?
Well, I went to Harvard Business School's executive education program, and I took a bunch of behavioral science classes. And I learned about like some of the biases of people and how to make great decisions. And we'd go through Thinking Fast and Slow by Daniel Kahneman, which is a fantastic book. It talks about picking people for the Israeli army and all this sort of stuff. And I just went on a search, and I just got obsessive about it, of how to make better decisions and to architect these decisions better and create a system that would do that. And what we found out was through all this, or what I found out, what the best way to do this was, let's get a defined scorecard of what we care about. It's got like 5 or 6 dimensions on it. And then let's go through this lifeline, even though it feels touchy-feely. We're actually filling out a scorecard. Hey, are they resilient? Oh, is there real evidence for EQ, right? Is there real like self-starting learning? Are they doing stuff to make themselves better? Is there real evidence? And that's what the interview.
You're picking those tidbits out of their life story.
Yes, just like a good interviewer would, right? Just like you're doing to me right now. You're picking the to create value for the audience, to serve the decision is what we're doing. And it feels great to the candidate. And then we're making a good, fairly objective decision, right? And then we get into a really cool, like we drop them into a lab and they we test drive them and we put them in an actual IT problem, and they take control, and we see them and observe them work. And what we found was we're doing really well 4 out of 5 times. All right. I think so. You could say like A or B hires for 3, for 4 of them, maybe a B- on the 4th one, and then 1 might be a whiff.
Yeah.
Right.
And is that good? You feel like that's
world class. It's world class. My Harvard professors, they think I'm the most arrogant person on the planet. They say the best in the world not doing that. 3 out of 5 is the best that they can do to and what they're probably inferring is like, oh, there's people hiding in the wings that I just don't, a confirmation bias. I like them, so I don't, and I'm really obsessive about that too. Like,
no, I'm not doing that. That's not true.
Hey, and so that's the thing. You got to really know, hey, where are you in terms of performance and stuff like that.
Yeah.
To be able to predict future performance is the most insidious sort of like tricky thing to do in the whole world.
Yeah, there are elements of this. I don't know if you're familiar with top grading, but that has a similar kind of methodology where you go through, maybe not a lifeline, but you go through point by point by point through their entire career.
Yeah, we do that. We usually go from their current or most relevant job backwards. And we plotted on that, and we talk about what a day in the life was, best leader they've ever had, and it just kind of goes where it goes.
Yeah.
But and then our whole thing is to see, and then by the way, I also have them force rank order a bunch of things like, okay, what are you looking for in a job? And one of them's like helping others, another one's personal development, one of them's money, one of them's like like the love of cool technology, or and they put these things in order. Right. And of course we bias it because they want a job and we have a job, and they're probably trying to tell us what we want to hear. But we do it pretty late, and they're worn out by the time
by that point. Yeah.
But what people value is they want to absolutely be on a great team. They don't want to be a one-man IT person at a law firm. They want to work amongst their peers. It is really scary to be by yourself.
Yeah.
And there's no career path, right? And so they're over it, or they don't want to be in a big enterprise IT department where they get siloed in one zone.
Yeah. Now, so this, I believe, is 2015, 16, 17 time period that you're kind of figuring these pieces out. Now, of course, March of 2020, we all know what happens there. COVID hits. We're all sent home. We're working remotely. How did that affect this, this mission of yours to make work better for your team?
Well, it gave us a chance, for one, to be transparent. I mean, it's easy to say, hey, we're transparent leaders, okay? But when you're scared and you need to say, hey, we're scared, we don't really know what's going on here, right? And it just gave us the ultimate practice and opportunity to be transparent, vulnerable, open. There was nothing that we would hide about anything. We avoided I think we let 7 people go. And that took about 10 years off my life, right? Of that. And by the way, most of them got hired back, thankfully, which was like the most exhilarating thing ever and satisfying thing to do. But look, hard times make for good leaders, and easy times make for weak leaders, right?
Yeah.
And weak leaders make for bad times, and on the cycle continues. So it's hard. It's going to be hard for everybody. Yeah.
And I even skipped over, but you started the company in 2004. So that means you also experienced the 07, 08 meltdown. Yep. What was that like for your company? Did you have some tough times then? Did you have to do layoffs then as well?
No layoffs then. What I did was I was able to scoop up talent like no other time, right? Like we were able to find fantastic people that were working in the mortgage industry of all things, and that was that bubble crash. And like my good friend Joseph Rogers, he still works with us. He came over because he got laid off, and so we kind of scooped up some stuff where others were, or some people where other people were throwing a lot of money around, but kind of being a little too lackadaisical with their financial discipline. So, but of course there was financial pressure from our clients, right? And so that whole bubble taught us to, there's this concept by Jim Collins. He says to have your oxygen containers, like when you're climbing Everest, you need some extra oxygen containers. Don't just take what you need. You need a couple of more,
Yeah.
Let's take a couple more than we need. Let's get some safety margin. And that's what we did with our cash. And we were able to give people terms on stuff that it did to help them bridge and just do these things that by having this balance sheet discipline, that it really bridged us through. And it was fantastic. And we came out of it stronger for it. So. Oh, and we also did some acquisitions through that time, right? Other MSPs that weren't doing. It was opportunity time, right? It was blood in the streets. Yeah.
When they say what cash is king at those times, right? But of course, it's also a bit of a gut check too, because it's like, well, is it the right time for us to be doing this? Should we conserve our cash or should we spend it to acquire a company? Talk me through some of that, mental gymnastics and discussions that I'm sure you went through.
Yeah, it's tricky. So a lot of the mergers that we were doing would be seller financing. And
so you're conserving your cash because they're financing it.
Yeah, they're sort of carrying the note for us. And most of the owners were riding off into the sunset and doing something else and had other projects that they wanted to do. They just got tired of operationally running an MSP, which is hard. It's a hard business. And so they were quite happy to kind of take it off of, have us take it off of our hands. And then we would buy them out over time, usually only 3 years though. And so it wasn't like we strung them out for a long period of time, and we gave them some guarantees and stuff, and they guaranteed some other things for us. So, but it was just trying to make sure that the fit was right. And the biggest thing that we also learned was like what to do with the people through that merger process. That's the most risk, is like, oh, what can hurt a merger? You lose
people disappear.
And the people, right?
And the customers, right?
And they usually go together, right?
Yeah.
Your best people leave, the customers are going to leave, on and on, right? So you have to be operationally excellent, right? This whole thing of growing, and I don't want to work on being better, and I just want to do mergers and somebody else run it. I'm not into that. That's not me, right? You don't even really belong until you're really obsessive about quality and running a really well-run business. Okay.
Yeah.
You don't really need to be messing around. That's how you're going to get wrecked. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because it's just look, if you're a worse place than the place that you acquired to work, people are going to leave. If you're a worse place for the customers than the place that, place that you acquired, so you have to be, the deal has to make sense. Like, are the customers and the talent better at your place?
Right. Of course, that means that you need to be acquiring a company where you take a look at the culture, you take a look at how they treat the customers, and you kind of say, they're not doing a lot of things right. They're doing this wrong, they're doing that wrong, which of course is hard when you want to buy something that has value.
Well, I mean, it's not that they're all doing stuff wrong. It's just like with the power and the balance sheet that we have, or with the career opportunities that are here, are we a better place just but our size? And we're only bigger because we never gave up. We started in our early 20s. I mean, we were the babies. Now I'm halfway to 94, my son says. I'm an old guy now. So, but it's like, like if you're a scale, you could do 24-hour support, or, you could just do things that a smaller MSP can't do, or a smaller business can't do, even if it's like, oh, they are great businesses. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I don't want to say anything poor about the business. We wouldn't have bought them if they were really, really bad.
Yeah. It is a tension, right? Because you don't want to buy something that you can't add any value to. As you said, it won't be as good at an experience.
Yeah. And we were really meticulous about like synergies, not like axing half the staff to pay for the deal. The deal with the head count that's there, it's got to make sense. Okay. Not, we're going to get it, we're going to lay off 30%, because that goes around, and it's just, it's a really risky. There are deals out there like that, right? But that's not the ones that we did, and we've never been hurt on one. So,
I want to ask a bit about EO, Entrepreneurs Organization. You joined it, I forget when exactly, I think within the last year and a half or so. What drew you to joining Entrepreneurs Organization after having, run your company for 20 years or so?
Right. So it's funny, like you get lonely sometimes as an entrepreneur in some ways. Of course, I've got my business partners and we're all best friends and all the good stuff. I don't know when to quit stuff, right? Like I have people in my forum that have done fantastic exits and knew when it was time, and they can share their experience in their story in my forum, and I can learn and kind of like understand some patterns and some decision making. I know how to buy and hold things, right? But I don't go around thinking about my exit. I never have. I wouldn't have made it this far, right? It's just like marriage, right? Like I don't think about divorce or what, like I just think I'm in. I'm good. I'm good to go. We're in this thing. And so it's really fantastic. And so originally that was like, oh, I want to get access to some of the people and how they're sort of thinking about getting out or like transactions and things like that, because I really had not allowed myself the liberty of thinking about that at all. And what it's turned into is, first of all, my forum is ridiculously awesome. Okay. We call ourselves Bricks. I think it has something to do with wine and sugars in the wine or something like that. My group, they love a glass of wine. In my group. Yeah, they do. Yeah, we'll say that. I don't think that's too much. So, there's so many tight connections, and I came into a place where they really love and respect each other. And it just story after story. And so I am the luckiest person on the planet Earth. I got dropped into this forum. I didn't know any better. And they're my people. I mean, they're just fantastic. So I wouldn't say that we just deal with hard charging business issues the whole meeting, right? There's a lot of talking about what's going on, where are we struggling personally. And that's the huge value of what I get out of it, is this sort of thing that you can't really talk, like, I'm not going to call my fraternity brothers that's working, a 9-to-5 job in Atlanta and say, hey, I don't know when to sell my, several multi-million-dollar business, and it's so hard, like that's not really appropriate. So anyways, it's been fantastic. And there's people and I'm learning a lot. There's people that are starting new businesses, serial entrepreneur type stuff. There's people that have exited and they're kind of taking a breather, right?
Yeah.
But they're doing other things like, real estate investing and some other stuff. And so it's almost like a glimpse into windows that I haven't really necessarily been privy to. Look, entrepreneurship, it's like it used to be to call yourself an entrepreneur, I mean, you were unemployable in my hometown. Okay. I mean, you were just selling, sodas on the sidewalk and you were horrible, right? Like it wasn't a thing that I thought was cool. Okay. At all. It wasn't. And, it isn't the easy thing to do, right?
No,
so anyways, it's really fun to know that there are as many flavors of entrepreneurs as the day is long. Okay. Everybody's got their own story. Oh, they're taking money and kind of like grow or die. And oh, this person's kind of chugging along with a nonprofit and it's kind of doing great, making a difference in the world. This person's just starting all these little things. Oh, they've got real estate. It's not just one thing. Like I know this group will probably understand that, but to the outside world, they think like, oh, entrepreneur, and they just think even like tech entrepreneur. They just think, oh, you're trying to go public, and I don't know, it's just really not my experience. But this has been really good entree into lots of different and a variety of different.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. John, this has been a pleasure talking to you. Where can people go to connect with you and learn more about what you do?
So our website is endsight.net. It's ENDSIGHT.net. And that's a good place to find out more about us and what we do around IT service and support. I'm on LinkedIn. I don't know my URL right off the top.
They can look it up.
Yep.
John Grover
and
Endsight.
Endsight.
Yeah, look it up. Perfect.
Go ahead and
Great.
link in to me. I sure like to talk to you about talent issues or anything at all if you're out there and want to connect.
Excellent, John. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Rising Entrepreneurs Podcast. This episode is powered by Rise 25. Please subscribe and check out future episodes.